Hello, shipmates. It's with a heavy heart that I come to you today to share the sad news that our dear friend and my shipmate, NMHS Chairman Emeritus Howard Slotnick, died at the end of March of COVID-19. Howard was an active leader of the National Maritime Historical Society for decades, working to preserve our rich maritime heritage. Please take a moment to watch as we share with you a little bit about Howard's life in his own words.
Probably the worst thing in the world that anyone could ask you for is to look back 60 years and find photographs when you were nice and young and good looking and weighed about 110 pounds. It's quite an experience. I don't recommend it unless you really want to feel bad. I graduated the University of Miami back in 1952. When I came out, I went into the leasing business. I look back and we were a pioneer in the leasing business. How did I start in the maritime history business? Well, it all started down at South Street when I happened to be driving by and it was a street festival, South Street Seaport, back in 1968. And I probably made the mistake of stopping and becoming a $1 member. Peter Stanford had a great way about him. He'd suck you in with a $1 membership. We started, and I became the trustee. Well, before I was even the trustee, the manager of the tall ships that were visiting the South Street Seaport Museum. Frank Brainard, Peter Stanford, and myself, we started thinking about having a small harbor festival for 1976 for the bicentennial. And that was really the beginning. National Maritime at that time was a small little figment of the imagination of Peter Stanford. The NMHS actually gave us $500 to travel in Germany in 1972 to talk to tall ships about coming to New York. And what we found out was that they were all very anxious. The minute we mentioned New York, we want to come. They did come, and it was a wonderful event. 4 or 5 million people watched it. We had 16 tall ships, a couple of hundred smaller ships over the July 4th weekend. Never to be forgotten. We had our offices on One World Trade Center on the 73rd floor, actually the whole floor, because there was no one else in the building at that time. Before the parade of sail, in comes the fire department, Marine Division captain, and a pilot from one of the fireboats. And he said, you know, Mr. Slotnick, we have a problem. And I said, oh, well, I figured there goes the fireboats with their water streaming out for the head of the parade. He says, we figured out how to get red, blue, white, and blue water. I said, well, that's no problem. What is the problem? That's great. He says, we need $40 for chemicals. And I quickly reached into my pocket and gave him $40. And that was the beginning of the red, white, and blue water that we see all the time on fireboats in New York Harbor. One of the greatest things that happened, and it started in 1976, is that the eyes of the world kind of woke up to what they had on the waterfronts. And through NMHS, National Maritime Historical Society, we try to foster these things. The people and foundations in this maritime heritage are just generous and super. Whether it's the late Peter Stanford, my wonderful, very close friend, Admiral Bob Papp, our good friend and advisor, Walter Cronkite, and his wife, Betsy, Clay Maitland and the International Registries, the Doherty Foundation, Peter Aaron, Birchie Green, our president, and there are many, many others. And I have stayed friends with not only the Coast Guard, but even the ship captains from the different countries. I've made friends all over the world. They just are all kind of out of the same mold, and it's wonderful to be associated with them. I think the main thing is that we're there to try to keep our maritime heritage alive.
Howard Slotnick dedicated much of his life to the financial stability of the National Maritime Historical Society that he so loved. And his daughter Sharon has asked us to create a fund in his name to further Howard's legacy. Please join us in supporting the Howard Slotnick Leadership Fund, which I'm honored to chair. It'll carry forward the work that meant so much to him. Doing so will honor our dear friend and shipmate and ensure that the National Maritime Historical Society's mission, serving as America's voice for our maritime heritage, continues. Thank you, and fair winds, Howard.